Welcome to the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 45.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Project Podcast. You have the two, Dr. Mikey Bugg, Dr. Jonathan Leicht. What's shaking on this Friday morning, Mike?
Well, I'm sitting on pins and needles here because I really don't know where this episode is going. We've been trying to get this recording in. I can't remember, earlier this week it didn't work. We have a tight window right now, and I was like, "What are we talking about?" And you're like, "Joy, things that bring you joy." And so I'm excited to see where you lead this.
See, this is what keeps our listener guessing. Earlier this year, everybody's like, "You're going all financial, like you're doing all business." I was like, "Just wait, we're switching it up again." And now in the last month, we've been going more into wellness and mental health. And now today, we're totally turning it on its wheels again. Sometimes you have to take a step back and not get so serious.
That's because this is where your dart on the dartboard landed this morning. You threw a dart and you're like, "What are we talking about?" Bang, joy.
I wanted to do this for a while. We can't be serious all the time, right? Yeah. Even in my notes this morning, in a leadership position, sometimes we are dealing only with problems. And then we have to come up with these mythical solutions that are really hard, complex. What the heck is a person to do when they just need to step back? And we're just talking about this with our veterinarians. It's difficult when you get to that low to not go into the negative. Well, today's episode, we're going to talk about some joy pieces. Stick around, don't listen, totally your choice. That's what we're doing.
You can't tell podcast listeners not to listen. That goes against all podcasting rules.
Hey, counterintuitive. We're doing it. Hang up if you don't want to listen, because we're getting into the things that create joy. We're skipping the quick tip. Let's get right into it.
Alrighty.
Mike, what brings you joy on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. Well, the first one is really not that exciting, but it honestly is the truth. Is I'm pretty simple. For me, it's very much the simple things. Once upon a time, I'd have to dig through all my old notes. One of my top goals was to never have to wear socks. And I'm not even joking. Like, I wrote that down as a goal.
That is so strange.
I love being like in sandals, in bare feet. So, and the reason for that is that tells you where you're going to be in those situations, right? Like you're at a beach or you're hanging out on a patio. And honestly, that is like my Zen place. Recording this, I think it's almost 30 degrees Celsius. The next 7 days, like all week long, almost like plus 30, mid 30 weather. I'll be outside every hour of it that I can be. Just enjoying the sunshine. And then, to be completely honest, with a cold beer here and there. And my current running number one favorite is probably Big Wave by Kona Brewery. So that's out of Hawaii. It's a golden lager or a golden ale, I think. It's delicious. And that being said, I have very little attachment to my number one. It floats. I love trying random beer. So random beer on a hot day with no socks on. That's my number one thing that brings me joy.
I love it. We're only into number one. And that is true. We've enjoyed the Kona on this podcast. I can think back to with Dr. Mosley there, where we all had different versions on them going, "What are you guys drinking?" And it was the Kona beer. Yeah. Yes. And you've got way more experience on those random beers. Another one of our partners in crime, Dr. Dave Snell, he's quite in tune with his beers these days as well, too.
Is he a connoisseur? I haven't seen that guy in a long time. Okay.
Yeah, he likes his beer, and terms of the varieties. I am boring. I will drink kokanee till I die. I do like the different versions, but I go back to my tried and true. Anyways, my number one for joy, in the roles that I partake now in leadership and building clinics, etc., sometimes it is nice to step back and really, for me, and just turn those complex solutions into step by step. So one of the things that is so strange over this last 2 years that I never would have thought before, but really brings me joy, is doing dentistries, like veterinary dentistries. It's so strange and it's so weird to say that, but we've been into multiple complex dentistries in the last 3 months, and every one of them has brought me joy because there's a step-by-step thing to do, follow this regime, and it should go well. Pull here, have patience, use your proper tools, and this magical tooth comes out that brings that patient less pain and makes me happy. So weird.
I don't know what to say to this one. Part of me wants to call bullshit and be like, the number one thing in this world that brings you joy
Not the
is
number
literally
one,
pulling teeth.
but it's bringing me joy these days. Like when I think about all the different cases in veterinary medicine and all the complex solutions that we have to go through right now and decisions, to sit down and do a complex dentistry right now is bringing me joy.
Well, I think you set this up to throw me under the bus. Here I say drinking beer on a patio like a schmuck, and then you talk about being a veterinary hero.
It's not being a veterinary hero. You should look at some of my woodwork. I think we joked about that earlier in the year. I just built myself a flower box again on the premise of following the 20 steps. I think it looks like a piece of you-know-what, but my wife loves it, so that's all I got. Yeah. It works. So that's my number one. Number two on the docket, Dr. Bugg.
Okay, number two for me, I know we're focusing on the positive, and this is a great thing, but to be completely honest, I'm horribly dropping the ball at it. Getting outside but specifically hiking, getting into the mountains and hiking. For our listeners, I live in Saskatchewan. There is not a mountain in sight. We're in the middle of the prairies, but for some reason, whenever I go to the mountains, like that just lights me up, and I do not do enough of it. Like Rosalie and I have even talked about, like, we should be moving to somewhere with mountains because it's just that awesome. So for any of our listeners, if you have amazing hiking experiences, now I am not talking about rock climbing. Like, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to climb up a sheer vertical wall. I'm talking about like hiking boots. It can be challenging, but I don't want to die. I don't want to be risking death on it. It's not an adrenaline thing for me. So getting outside and hiking would be high on my list, but in all honesty, I haven't been doing nearly as much of it as I should be.
Cool. Number two, hiking. Love it. And you do that in Saskatoon. You can do that in the River Valley a little bit.
Yeah, it's completely different experience, but yes.
All right, to keep our somewhat listeners that are still listening on board, number two on my end, and I'm not even cheating, it is also getting outside. At the end of the day, we spend so much time on Zoom and in meetings now. Being able to get away, not take my phone with me, and just hang out with the kids and my family out doing outdoor activities is amazing. My kids are 5 and 4 years old right now. They're both on the same soccer team, and I'm using that in quotations for what it is because it's not really soccer, but it's so enjoyable watching them and getting out and sitting down with now our friends that we're getting to know better and better and just relax. That is bringing us joy, especially in this moving towards post-COVID era. Clean, simple, fun. Put that damn phone away.
Yeah, man. I agree.
Yeah. There we go. Number two. All right, Mike. Number three. What brings you joy?
Okay, for me, number three, I'm kind of grouping two things together, but it's all centered around laughing. I like to joke around. I like to be goofy and not take things seriously. Within that, two big subcategories. One would be just straight up comedy. Like, I love going and seeing comedy shows. We have a little bit of a local scene here. Obviously, it's not like big name. I would love to go see, Jerry Seinfeld. I know that's a really old name in the business, but I'd still love to see him. People like Dave Chappelle are some of my favorites. And the other in comedy, Frank Caliendo, I might be saying his name wrong.
I've never even heard of this
I
gentleman.
know. I was trying to think of things that aren't super mainstream that like people listening might be like, oh, I've never heard of that, and check him out. So he does impersonations.
Cool.
And keeping in mind for our listeners, like I'm old. I'm in my mid 30s. So if you're in your 20s, some of the people he's impersonating, you probably have never even heard of. But I've always been so impressed by people that can do impersonations because their level of like social awareness is off the charts. They pick up on everyone's tiny little nuances and speaking patterns. And then to be able to like turn that into like a caricature and pull out the pieces. Obviously Alec Baldwin doing Donald Trump just kills me. Like he's so good at it. So impersonations and then movies. I'm a movie guy. I can watch the same movie like 30 times. It drives Rosalie nuts.
What's your favorite?
So I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't know. I have like top ones. And so the one movie I'll throw out on this podcast, I'm picking kind of one of my favorite, funny, obscure movies would be the Royal Tennenbaums. I don't know what year it came out, a long time ago. It's a really like sarcastic, I think it's Wes Anderson who did it, style of humor. So if you go check that movie out, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And there will be no people in the middle of it, right? It's one of those movies, you love it or hate it. But I love it. Like,
what's it called? Say the title again. We'll put it in the show notes and make sure that people can comment on their direction. I've never even heard of it, so I have nothing to say to it.
The Royal Tennenbaums. It's good, and it has like a star cast, like tons of big name actors. So back in the day, I think it was a big deal. But I wanted to come up with things that weren't just obvious, so that's why I came up with that one.
Cool. Well, my third one, for going number 3, is not obvious either. If I've had a long day and just chilling out after the kids have gone to bed, I will literally put on the YouTube, and inadvertently, I don't know why this happens, it will come on to the top 10 of The Voice or America's Got Talent. And I love watching the different musical guests that go on there. I don't know why, whether it's piano or guitar or voice or weird, wacky performances. That has been an ongoing thing for probably the last 2 years now, once I found it on YouTube. And my YouTube totally knows me now. It just drives me right there. And so I find that, and I'll be laughing, and Candace is like, "You're watching that again?" Or, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm laughing at one of those performances. And I don't care if it happened last week or 2 years ago. Same thing. I'll watch them over and over again and love them. Yep.
Man, I would have never guessed that. And I know you pretty well.
Yep. So I'll end up just on there for way too long sometimes because I get stuck in these different performances. And I find it pretty cool. So it brings me joy at the end of the day.
Nice. Yeah, and I think it's important. This veterinary profession, a lot of sort of alpha, high achieving, driven people. I know sometimes I feel guilty if I'm on YouTube looking at entertainment, or whatever it is, but it really is important, to reset, recharge,
and watch that over news. And any day I'll take that now. So too much to do. All right, any extras? We said
no. You told me. I'm putting you on the spot. So I can't. I have to have only 3. You gave me shit about it, so I don't have any extra.
You need number 4.
No, there is no number 4.
That is good. Any recommendations, Mike, when you're on Instagram or social media? Is there a place that you find yourself going towards that you think our listeners would enjoy?
Okay, you're putting me on the spot here. I have one. I don't know if it really fits with finding joy. It is more motivation. What is his name? I'm looking it up as we talk. I think it's Ben Lionel Scott. And so he does all of these compilation videos that are typically around motivation or inspiration. He does a really good job of them. And Ben Lionel Scott, all one word, motivational videos and quotes. I'm not a huge fan on necessarily motivational quotes. Sometimes I think they're way too like foo-foo.
Yep.
But some of the videos he does, like if you're having one of those days where it's just hard to get going, you need that kick in the ass, I usually put one of his on and it's just like, boom, away you go. So I know that's not funny or humor, but that does bring me joy in a different way.
I'm going to have to look his name up. We'll make sure it's in the notes as well too. I'll share an extra as well too. Again, way off the bandwagon, but my wife and I, we've been following her for a while, and this is on YouTube again. Sometimes you need to get out of the chair and do different things when it's not just lifting weights or cardio. And we do yoga. That's been a part of our life now for probably the last 1.5 to 2 years for sure. And there's a lady on YouTube, which is Yoga with Adrienne. And it is a basic yoga, but she has so many different varieties of workouts. And we literally stick to the 20-minute sessions because heaven forbid you should actually get into a 45-minute or an hour session. Way too long for this beginner. But for her and the way she lines them up, they're great 20-minute sessions first thing in the morning.
I think you told me about her because I know that name is familiar, and I've done some of the 20-minute like hip ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're really
just
good and like not pretentious. You know how like sometimes some of the yoga instructors or videos or courses or whatever can be really sort of uppity, and hers is laid back. I see her dog is in like lots of them, and yeah, it's
exactly
pretty awesome.
Yep. Benji, the old dog, he just lays right beside her, and then I look over and there's my cat on the yoga mat stealing my spot, and really doesn't matter because I can't bend that far anyway, so it's perfect. Yeah. So yoga with Adrienne, that's my extra for a joy first thing in the morning when we need to. So nice. Hope people got some benefit and a little bit of fun for this episode. I think it's number 45. It could be different, but that's what we're going with. We've got some great episodes coming up ahead. We have some excellent guests that are either recorded or on the way. More to come out of the Veterinary Project. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap, on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly, so be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to theveterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the Veterinary Project Podcast @gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.